What would you respond to someone that says morality is subjective? Well, I would just ask them the question, so are you saying kicking children in the face is subjective, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing?
To strike a child may be hurtful to that child, but in an absolute sense, you cannot argue that it is objectively good or bad, because good and evil do not exist as distinct entities in the universe, but rather are concepts created by us. In a sense, the universe does not care whether a child is struck any more than it does when a star explodes in space or when two asteroids collide. Therefore, to answer your question, of course it is subjective. Good and evil are subjective notions that do not exist independently of our consciousness.
I would just give them an example like that, because that's a very obvious thing. When you bring in the human and you make an example about a human injustice, then usually that makes sense for people.
Things that make sense to the majority of people don't necessarily have any true meaning. There are numerous examples of situations where our intuition can mislead us, and morality is clearly one of those cases. Good and evil cannot and are not objective. If they were, we would probably have to ask questions like, what particles make up goodness?
Sometimes people are just saying that because they just want to get very philosophical and deep, and they don't want to talk about it. They want to act that way, not that that is getting deep, but they're just acting as if, because they don't want to talk about something that's very simple. Why are we killing innocent animals? Why are we harming innocent animals when we don't need to? It's common sense.
For most people, it probably seems like common sense. However, that doesn't mean that there's any logic or reasoning behind it. It simply means that we've evolved to see reality from that perspective. There could exist entities that are just as intelligent as us, perhaps even more so, for whom these ideas would not be common sense at all, but rather illogical and arbitrary.
But they don't want to get into that, so they bring up these things. But yeah, that's what I would say. I would say, so are you saying that I could kick a child in the face and one person could say that's okay and one person could say that's wrong? Because that's what they're saying, subjective.
Precisely. There are concrete examples of this happening in the real world. If it weren't the case, there wouldn't be so many children killed by terrorists, for example.